Yeah, so if you could just start by telling us, how this all came about and, the size of the bus and all that.
Yeah, we had on Sunday evening about 6:30 p.m. We had a deputy that stopped a semi that was traveling eastbound on Interstate 40 in Canadian County. The stop actually occurred around Country Club Road eastbound, and the reason that we stopped the semi is the deputy observed the driver swerving from the outside lane onto the shoulder a couple of different times, and not only is that a violation of the law, but it's a pretty good indication that we may have a driver that's either tired or possibly driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
After the initial stop, we made contact with the driver and simply asked where they were going, where they were coming from. They were headed from Avondale, Arizona to Oklahoma City. There were 5 vehicles that were loaded on their car hauler, and the bill of lading on each individual indicated that that was the final destination for all the vehicles was Oklahoma City. The deputies just simply asked the driver if they could look in the vehicles, if they could search them. The driver said yes. And with it being a commercial vehicle, the rules as far as being able to go into those vehicles or trailers or whatever the contents are a little bit different than on private vehicles. He said yes, gave consent, and when we got to the Chrysler Pacifica, the deputies noticed that the rear passenger compartment or the rear seat looked like it had been fiddled with, or it didn't look like it was factory specs. And I mean, when you look at enough vehicles, I mean, all of us get in cars every day. We know something that's probably been monkeyed with or moved around. So that kind of drew their attention. And when they investigated a little further by removing the seats, they indeed found a false compartment.
And what did they find inside there?
Yeah, inside the false compartment were 35 individual bundles that were compressed. They were hard, kind of like brick. They were wrapped in cellophane and tape, masking tape, as well as covered with some type of what we believe was a graphite powder to mask the odor if a drug dog was to go over it. But 35 individual bundles. A kilo is about 2.2 pounds. These 35 individual packages, actually, some of them weighed over 2.2 pounds. We ended up closer to 80 pounds, which is closer to 77 kilos, but there were 35 individual bundles. One of the bundles was opened up, and a field test indicated that it was cocaine. So we actually seized the vehicle from the transport company as well as the drugs. After we visited with our driver, we determined and believe that it's more than likely that he did not know that there were drugs located in that vehicle. He simply works for a company, showed up, was going to go from point A to point B to deliver the vehicle. So we didn't make it a bust or an arrest in this particular case, but we did seize the vehicle and the drugs, and the investigation will continue.
Now, you said that this truck was coming from Arizona. Is there any idea where the drugs were coming from, or could they have been coming from just another stop along the road?
Well, I mean, that, like I said, this is still under investigation, and we still have questions. I mean, there's owners to the vehicle and other resources that we can look into. But as far as the origination of the drugs, we believe it's cartel dope. We believe that it's more than likely out of Mexico. But to be able to pinpoint and say exactly its origin, we can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was wondering about this practice of putting the drugs in a car and then having that car transported by a separate company. Is that a pretty common practice when it comes to trafficking drugs across state lines like this?
Well, this isn't anything new. This is the war on drugs has been going on in the United States for quite some time. I'd say 30, 35 years, maybe even longer. But a concentrated effort with having people out there specifically looking for drug interdictions. It's kind of morphed from being hauled in automobiles, whether they're cars and motorhomes and pickups, to semis. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there's not a large portion of it that's being shipped on rail or maybe even using air. So it's kind of morphed, and I think that the cartel and the people that are hauling the drugs are always trying to adapt and change their means of transportation to avoid detection.
Now, about the size of this bust, is this the largest one that Canadian County's been involved in?
It's certainly the largest cocaine seizure that we've made in Canadian County at the Sheriff's Office. And we did a little bit of checking around this morning, and we thought of a couple of other cocaine busts, and I'm not talking about marijuana or meth or others, just cocaine. At least in recent history in this metro area, it's the largest. I can't say ever, but the closest we could come that we could recollect, and we made a couple of phone calls, was about 30 kilos, or maybe 70 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there any other agencies that are assisting you guys in the follow-up investigation with this?
Obviously, it would take other agencies if we were going to look into its origin and its destination, because we're relegated pretty much to Canadian county. So I think anybody could probably figure out that there's other agencies that are involved. And we work really good together. Like I said, in this particular case, we didn't really make a bust or an arrest. We seized the drugs. But we're not satisfied with that. We'd like to be able to make apprehensions on the individuals responsible for it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, thanks.